I am Seth Grantley, and welcome to the GKT Community Podcast, a podcast where we meet one of the inspirational people who share their knowledge and lived experience on globalknowledgetransfer.com. Craig, it's a pleasure to have you on the Global Knowledge Transfer Community Podcast. Welcome.
Hi, Seth. Great to be here, mate.
When you were at school, what did you want to be and why?
Mate, I had a real passion to be an architect. I like looking at pretty buildings, whether they're historical, new or otherwise. I kind of feel like I appreciate design. I worked out pretty quickly when I struggled through tech drawing in grade 9 that the destiny wasn't meant to be architecture and building design. That actually changed me to go into a different course of study and started doing business studies, and that shaped the direction that I went after that.
If you could go back now with all that you've learnt, what advice would you give that Year 12 Craig?
If you're looking to something that you think you've got a real passion for, make sure you've got the ability to do it, because sometimes you might really want to do something and you just can't get there, and that's okay to accept that and find that pathway that you want. And I think that's something that can apply beyond the studies of high school and endeavours that people have got.
What would you say to the difference between following your talents and following your passion? And can those two things coexist?
Like professionally, the work that I've done over the last 20 odd years, which has mostly been around the realm of anti-financial crime, I would say is a passion. Like I really enjoy what that is and what the difference that you can make. But at the same time, like I've got other passions outside of that. I think they can coexist. You can still do things that contribute to both those domains or those communities.
Can you give us your 3 career highlights that help us understand how you got from Year 12, Craig, and the architectural dream to where you are now?
I've moved into the business studies piece at school, and I've just really enjoyed that. And that found me landing in a graduate job in banking. So I was doing commercial banking in the lovely surrounds of Caboolture, north of Brisbane, where I left university. And having studied business in Brisbane, I did a pivot to essentially sign up for the police, which sounds like a long way from business studies. And the third thing I'd say is saying yes to opportunities. I've always been a big believer in that. It may not feel like the right time, but if something comes up and it sounds like a challenge and you think that it'll further you, rather than fear that change or opportunity.
So Caboolture to the police to Canada to South Korea. Help join the dots of the last two, because that's not Queensland Police.
That's right, yeah. And in fact, police has another story to that as well. So Caboolture became Scotland, which is where my family is from. And I really want to get more closer and connected to family. And so I chose to move over to Scotland, picked up a job in banking. And it was over there that an opportunity came up in the policing. And I was like, go and do financial crime investigations. At the time, it was the introduction of new legislation in the UK called Proceeds of Crime. Came back to Australia and stayed in that field, stayed in government, managed to work through both the law enforcement side of that and also moved into the regulation side in Australia. And that was what took me to Canada and South Korea. So I joined the international body for countries to try and prevent financial crime.
Give us an outline of what your current role is and why you love it so much.
Where I landed today, which is working for a software company, was not the place that I thought I would have landed. And in fact, it wasn't even on the radar. I work in a role that allows me to provide advice internally to the business about the strategy, the product that they need to deliver, allows me to engage with industry, governments, and get exposure to a broader than Australia remit as well, work across Asia. I do teach and lecture at a university in the field of financial crime, contribute to their research programs, and I've found myself joining a couple of boards as well.
I see you on LinkedIn floating around conferences around Asia Pacific. What are you talking about when you're there?
Part of my role is being the external facing person for Symphony AI, the business that I work for. And as the name suggests, they apply artificial intelligence into the context of how do you use technology to find patterns of activity that represent someone trying to steal money. So when I'm out talking to industry, government, other stakeholders in academia.
What are the 3 key contributors to your success and why?
That's that sense of purpose component. If you don't find that what you're doing aligns to what you're looking for to get out of a role or you're contributing to, then there's misalignment. So what I wanted to get out of a sense of purpose has shifted, or perhaps the direction of travel for that particular business kind of moved in a slightly different direction. So that's one. I'm always very dedicated to an outcome, right? Like theory's great in one sense. And I've done a couple of roles where I've been more involved in the thinking and the framework. I always like getting back to something where you can really be able to point the outcome. The third one for me, I think, is just recognising that people are always first. There's no business that can do what it needs to do if it hasn't got its people on board, aligned, signed up. You can have the greatest people in a team or an organisation, but if you can't get everybody working towards that one or set of goals, then you probably won't succeed.
We've all been influenced by many great people. Can you tell us about someone who's had a specific impact on you, a mentor or a coach along your journey, and what that meant to you?
It sounds a bit cliche. My parents, I think, had quite a big influence on the way that I approach things. So they ran their own business or businesses. As I got older, I used to, like in my school holidays, I'd do work for them. My father had a business where they did sports arenas, and so they'd do the flooring and the line marking. I used to go in and have to re-line mark a sports hall for a school in the school holidays. When I look back, I think some of those things, and maybe my parents didn't even intentionally intend those things to have a sort of impact that I think that it had on me, but I'd certainly cite that. And the second one, from a professional perspective, I had a boss, despite the domain that we worked in financial or anti-financial crime, he saw his vocation as leadership that really impressed upon me, to the point that I was talking about before around the importance that people have. If I can lead people through that and give people a voice and give them motivation, then we'll be successful.
So you've joined globalknowledgetransfer.com. What do you hope to achieve for yourself, and what do you hope to achieve for others through sharing your knowledge and lived experience?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that giving it back thing for me. And on the other side of that coin, there's still a learning component. Like any time I've ever, whether it's formal or informal, provided someone some kind of mentoring or coaching, and those people have said that they've benefited from that. But I've also found that you learn a lot, whether it's about yourself or you listen to the way that someone's constructed, they're thinking about a problem or how they're trying to solve something. I've always found those types of interactions hugely beneficial through global knowledge transfer. It can give people that opportunity, or can just simply help kind of solve a problem. And I think that'd be fantastic.
Our listeners, like us, have faced and are facing challenges in their lives. What are the 3 top challenges that you faced and overcome that you would share?
I reckon I'm probably still imperfect at this today, where it took a long time to work out when you should say no. That's a really important thing, that if you can work that out earlier in your career. I got too much anxiety about all the things I was trying to do, and that was really difficult to manage. And it didn't just happen overnight to go. It took a couple of years to readjust. So that's one big challenge for me. Another, I kind of referenced it a couple of times, if you kind of feel like you're getting bent out of shape because your sense of purpose and whoever you're working with isn't aligning, you got to call that really early and either make the decision to change or get that realignment. The third one might be making a clean break and creating space for myself. What is it that I really want to do and feel that sense of purpose, and how am I going to achieve that? Those things have really shaped how I approach not just work, but life in general.
If you could have 1 hour with 3 people, they can be dead or alive, who would they be and why?
The first one would be Alan Border, former captain of the Australian cricket team. Border as a captain worked with the team and the players to turn that team around and start winning. I remember hearing, if you want to catch a ball, catch 100 balls till your hands are bruised. And then I switched to music. A guy called Rick Rubin, he's a producer of music, and he's often seen as somebody who just takes things back to basic, lets the artist be creative, and then he kind of puts a little bit of icing on the top, if you like, from a producer perspective. I grew up in the high school years of the 90s, so grunge and bad hip-hop generally kind of permeate my musical taste. And Rick Rubin, he's worked with a few small bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Beastie Boys, Metallica. And then the final one is, I'll stay on the music theme. Jeff Buckley, in that mid to late 90s period, came on the scene as this amazing vocalist. The vocal range that he had and the way that you'd just be kind of taken by his music. The funny story was my mate won first prize, which was 2 tickets, and I won second prize, which was his CD. And so he took me to the concert. I'm forever indebted to him. Back to Jeff Buckley, his music just seemed to captivate me as well as many other people, and he did tragically die very young in 1997. He was only 30 years old. And even now, I'll go back and listen to his music. So yeah, AB, Rick Rubin, Jeff Buckley. It'd be an interesting mix of people to sit around a dinner table with, that's for sure.
Thank you, Craig, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for joining the globalknowledgetransfer.com community and being on the podcast today.
Thanks, Seth. Pleasure to do it, and really enjoyed it.
That is all we have time for today. Thanks to our guest and our sponsor, globalknowledgetransfer.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you can be sure to meet more inspirational individuals from the Global Knowledge Transfer community in future episodes.